Hi, welcome into Cannes. I'm Jameson Fleming, the editor-in-chief of MM+M, and we're here for our latest video in our series from the festival, and I am joined by Matt McNally, the fairly new global CEO of Publicis Health. So first of all, welcome in and
Thanks.
Congrats on the new role.
Thank you very much. It's good to see you.
Yeah, absolutely great to see you. And so before we get into our discussion here today, I got to ask, what's been a highlight of Cannes so far? Is there something that's really stuck out and resonated with you?
I think there's a lot. I mean, I think the energy this year is like intense. You can feel it. I think there's so many different people here from all around the world. And I think what's really interesting is, yes, there's a lot of talk around technology, data, and AI, but a lot of the CMO roundtables I've been sitting in are really leaning into empathy, right, and humanity. And at the end of the day, especially in our industry, we're servicing patients and providers. So the humanity aspect and empathy aspect has been really interesting and an interesting theme for me to hear over the last couple days.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In this space, more than any other category, as AI proliferates, it's the human touch that we're going to put on top of it that's going to make all the difference. So it's a great point. So as we start thinking about the overall health marketing landscape here, things are changing pretty fast these days.
Yeah, a little bit.
From economic, social, political shifts, everything is moving in varying directions. So from your perspective, what are the most significant challenges and opportunities that are happening right now as this transformation is just blowing us all away?
Well, I think it's interesting. We actually did a keyword analysis and used AI and metadata. So here I go talking about technology. And we basically compared the earnings calls from Q1 2025 to Q4 of 2024 to really start to hear like what are the themes and what have been the biggest shifts. And I think what we're hearing on kind of the challenges aspect is like the challenges for all of our CEOs at big pharma companies and even outside of pharma to drive growth. And then you look at what's happening in the economic climate, they're also kind of, looking at that also on how they're driving savings. Then we overlaid the idea of what we're seeing in politics and government, right? Everything from the new administration in the US to tariffs globally, other challenges. And then what CEOs are tending to look at from a lever pull is how to use tech, data, and AI to kind of harness and embrace some of those challenges. I think a lot of people have been asking about the government, as one of the key challenges. And I think for us, it's about the government, but more so when you look at the evolving pharmaceutical pipeline. And I think a lot of us have been in this industry a long time. Now the pipeline is dominated by rare niche disease oncology. A lot of brands that patients are going to be on for the rest of their lives, right? It's not an acute condition. So this idea of what DTC look like, regardless of what the government says about driving someone to go in and ask their doctor for X, when the role the patient's going to play is going to look a little bit different, we're thinking it's less about DTC advertising, more of this idea of what does adherence, compliance, support, relationship building look like to actually be along these patients in their journeys when they're on these medications for a lot of lives. And then I think the upside opportunity is that with data and technology, we can do that in a more precise way, a more human way, and a more accountable and responsible way for patients.
Yeah, and I want to drill a little deeper into something you briefly referenced, around the threats to DTC advertising in the US. It's in the news again. I mean, we've been speculating since pretty much, RFK got named into that role. Will that decision come? How will it be received? Can it even happen? So I would love for your take on how you're kind of scenario planning around all of that.
Yeah, I think, I don't have a crystal ball, but I go back to, I remember about a decade ago, I was speaking at a major publisher and a reporter stood up, and it was interesting. She covered tobacco, firearms, and the pharmaceutical industry, right? Those were like the three, those were the three categories. Like that's what we were. So I think, again, I don't know what the government is going to do or not do, but the scenarios that we're looking at is, again, shifting more towards adherence, compliance, support messaging, patient support. Also this idea of most of our pharmaceutical clients now manage multiple portfolios, right? They want to be leaders in oncology. They want to be leaders in neurology. They want to be leaders in immunology. So we're partnering with a lot of our clients to do above brand advertising, right? To start to position a pharmaceutical company as a leader in those different therapeutic areas. And then really focus our kind of advertising and support efforts on HCPs. So I think for us, it's just, let's not scenario plan for the government. Let's scenario plan for what the pipeline looks like, and let's scenario plan for what patients and providers actually need.
Sure. No, and that's a great point. I mean, and we saw that with the Super Bowl the last 2 years, with Pfizer getting in there and really trying to build its brand as a larger, not specific to one drug, that they want to own an area, and to their credit, they've done it the last
Absolutely.
2 years. So I want to talk a little bit about how the traditional marketing model is shifting, and whether you feel that what is happening right now is actually sufficient to meet demands and expectations for both patients and HCPs.
Well, it's interesting, and we're in Cannes, so obviously we're talking a lot about the work. And for years I've said, I think the work and what we're giving to patients and HCPs has to be better, right?
Yeah.
The idea of the old marketing playbook on a big campaign idea, launching that with DTC advertising, supporting it through digital, or even launching it digitally, starting with kind of like an unbranded website, like all of that doesn't work right now. So I think a lot of our clients are kind of throwing out the marketing playbook, but more importantly, we believe we're playing a completely different game also. So we've been talking a lot at Publicis Health around brands as platforms for engagement, right? Because when you think about the pharmaceutical industry, we're not servicing a single customer, right? We're not retail, we're not luxury. We have multiple stakeholders that actually have to get a patient on therapy. There's the patient, there's her caregiver, there's her care team, right? If it's an oncology, it's her oncologist. There's payers and insurers. So all of that kind of ecosystem, the approach that we're taking, kind of this brand as platforms, is connecting all of that work, starting with data to actually understand who are the patients, who are the providers that are actually going to benefit from and then actually put a patient on therapy for one of our brands. And then we're creating experiences across all the different touch points, right? Both from an in-life perspective, a point of care perspective, a digital perspective, and even in their own home through kind of the reimagination of CRM. So we're really kind of taking that platform idea as our new marketing playbook, as we're kind of onboarding new clients and working with current clients.
Yeah, and at the beginning of the answer, you referenced a bit of elevating the work, and I don't know if you've been able to walk the work yet, but it's been fascinating to see how much the judges really put an emphasis on craft. That so many of the Grand Prix, the gold, the silver, the bronze, almost every one of them was well crafted. And as someone who comes from the consumer advertising world, it was refreshing to see that kind of craft happening in the health world. But I want to also jump into something you pointed out of how many people you have to get on board to get somebody on a therapy, and the complexity. We've almost overcomplicated this whole process. And so in your mind, I mean, what are you doing to, help change the way this complexity is happening, simplifying things, and maybe not perpetuate the same models that, have made this whole thing such a jungle and a web to get through?
I think first and foremost, it starts with data, right? I think a lot of organizations start with insights, but now we have access to data sets to better understand patients. We can, in a de-identified way, match those patient data sets to the provider data set and give them more personalized messages, right? Through either the experience they're seeing on a website, the experience they're seeing from display advertising, or even experiences they're seeing in nonlinear television. So I think that personalization aspect is taking some of that friction out of the system. And then even when we start to look on the HCP side, we can understand, like, is her barrier to put a patient on therapy access and affordability? Is it efficacy and safety? Is she a high prescriber of this certain brand, or is she new to brand? So all of those different nuances that now we can get through different data signals, we can give every audience that we touch a more personalized experience. And again, I keep using the word, to get the friction out of the system and take a lot of the complexity out of the system.
Yeah, and a lot of what you just spoke about, AI data technology is underwriting all of this. And as you think about modern marketing, how does Publicis Health really define the modern marketing in healthcare?
That's a really good question. I'll take a step back. So at Publicis, we've talked about this idea even outside of health, that for years when marketing is going through a transformation, everyone think their way through it is innovation, right? Let's have an innovation day. Like I remember when digital was new, we'd do an innovation day around all things internet advertising, right? When social was new, let's do an innovation day around MySpace and Facebook, as I date myself. I think the issue when you look at innovations is you tend to do like a pilot. And a lot of times those pilots are in different silos, right? It could be a DTC pilot, an HCP pilot, a medcoms pilot, and a lot of times those things aren't scalable. So what we've been talking about with our clients is this notion of connect or die versus innovate or die. And what we're doing is connecting data to data. So our data to our clients' data, to other third-party data, to do everything from insight generation for content creation, data mining to do audience planning. We call that our core identity at Publicis. And then we're also reconnecting capabilities to capabilities. So again, you asked the question of how do we make it more simple? How do we connect what we're doing on the HCP side to the DTC side, right? How can we take what we're doing from the scientific comms side and take that in a legal way into the promotional area? So kind of breaking down those silos and back to that kind of brand as connectors within capabilities. And the last piece is connecting people to people. You know, one of the things that I'm really excited about with new technologies is we can work more seamlessly across Publicis Health, you know, not only between agencies, but also geographies. Health is global, right? So we can connect our global creative teams in the UK with our global account teams in New York to kind of bring clients a different solution. And then our platform, which we call Marcel, also brings our clients into our platform from a workflow perspective. So kind of that humanity, data, technology is how we're kind of doing modern marketing. And again, we call that connect or die.
Yeah, and you're starting to answer my next question already. Thinking about AI and real world data and understanding consumer needs and behaviors. So walk me through, you know, the kind of the broader picture within Publicis of how you're getting to that, and then also how you're navigating the fact that, you know, globally, privacy is treated differently. I mean, the U.S. is finally starting to get on board, but Europe has been ahead of the U.S. for quite some time now.
So what we're doing. It's interesting, the AI question. So we decided 3 weeks out from Cannes that we were not only going to celebrate creativity, but also, as I said, we did that keyword analysis of CEOs, and we were like, we're going to be meeting with over kind of 300 different clients across Publicis Group this week. And we thought we have to help them address those business challenges. So we've created what we call 6 AI upsides. They're all AI products that we built across the marketing continuum to help our clients solve those big problems. So it's everything from the very beginning on audience understanding and identification, right? Like, let's make sure we're going after a patient that actually is a potential patient for our therapy. Let's make sure we're intersecting that with HCPs that are actually going to subscribe. So we've built 2 different AI products that are all doing kind of that audience insight and audience building. Then we're also doing everything from a media perspective and kind of in a connected media ecosystem using AI to connect what we call PESO, paid, earned, shared, and owned media across our clients' ecosystem. Another key area, the third, is kind of all around content creation. It's a huge trend that we're seeing in clients around, let's make sure that we're creating more of the content that's generating value, less of the content that's not generating value for patients and providers. We build a suite of AI products all around content creation and production, and we've tailored that to the pharmaceutical industry. So we built AI products all around med legal and compliance at the very beginning as we're generating content to make sure that the content that we're creating is relevant and compliant and that we get it right the first time. Our brands are under a lot of pressure to drive value. And then the other 3 AI upsides, there's 2 all around kind of measurement and data, you know, ensuring that we're getting the right return from the assets that we're doing. You know, the other is all around portfolio management. You mentioned Pfizer, multiple oncology products. How are we making sure that we're targeting a lot of the same HCPs? What is the kind of cannibalization and kind of portfolio strategy using AI to do that in a relevant way? And last but not least is helping our clients build AI products on their own, right? We don't need to do every single thing for them. So how can we build AI products and technologies in their environment?
Yeah.
They're investing in Adobe, they're investing in Salesforce, so it can be more seamless. So we're kind of using AI, but tailoring it to solve those 6 business challenges for our clients.
Yeah, that'll make sense. And I want to talk a little bit more about, you know, brands, brands as platforms, and, you know, can you give examples of how that's showing up and driving engagement models? And it could also be from outside of healthcare, because there's a lot this industry can learn from the consumer side. So I'm curious, you know, what are those kind of case studies that you look at to help explain to clients what you're trying to do?
My favorite is Disney. And when I share it first with any pharmaceutical client, they're like, I'm not Disney, right? Because I talk about creating a platform and an ecosystem. And a lot of clients are like, I'm a single brand. I don't understand what an ecosystem is. And in 1957, if you actually Google it, Walt Disney built his first synergy map. And he did it on the back of a napkin. And what he started to map out at the time were all the different components of what the Disney brand was then. It was the amusement parks, it was movies, it was cartoons, it was books. And then almost like a grid on a street, he started doing all the connective tissue, right? Like what could be all the trade-offs between theme parks and films? What could be the trade-offs between books to cartoons? And he did that with saying that anything that he was going to drop into the new Disney ecosystem should work in that platform. Now zoom out, right? You've got Disney, you have ESPN, you have Marvel Comics, right? So you launch a new Marvel movie, there's a ride at Disney.
Yeah.
There's a Snapchat filter that lets a kid become their favorite, character in the new Marvel movie. There's merchandise and retail. So I think Disney is a great example of that kind of creating that ecosystem. And when a lot of pharmaceutical clients push back, I hold it up, I'm like, he did it in 1957, right? The same kind of thinking. So we should be applying that to modern marketing today.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many opportunities when you think about just health and wellness in general that, practically any brand is a health and wellness brand if you try hard enough. And so there's so many connections that a pharma company can start making outside of just the drugs and therapies it offers
100%.
to get to where you're talking about. And so, I want to end the discussion a bit with thinking, healthcare on a global scale and your vision for how Publicis Health drives global business transformation for some of these massive companies out there. So, how do you plan to help clients overcome persistent problems like siloed operations, poor understanding of real-world consumer needs, and the challenge of differentiation in a marketplace that is filled with similar actors?
It's a great question, and I think first what we've done is my first month or two back at Publicis is I spent a lot of time with our brand teams and clients outside of health, right? Because a lot of times transformation happens faster in other categories, right? In retail, in luxury, and automotive. And we've helped some of the biggest brands in the world globally transform at Publicis Group. And now we're bringing those learnings and those tenets to the pharmaceutical industry, right? So we're not starting from scratch, right? We kind of know what's down the dark alley. We see what's been down there. Other clients have gone. And I think the biggest thing is the tech is there, right? Getting on a platform like Adobe or Salesforce, easy, right? Starting to bring in marketers from outside of category to elevate and partner alongside of really great pharma marketers, easy to do. The biggest challenge that we're facing and what we're solving through behavior change is that idea of the changing how we're working and the behavior behind it. So we're sitting down with our pharmaceutical clients. We're like, let's approach creativity like a CPG company, right? And we show examples. Let's approach CRM and now this lifelong relationship we're going to have with a patient from the hospitality industry, from work that we've done on like Marriott and Bonvoy. Let's look at how we're doing precision marketing and media like an automobile retailer. So we're also bringing big change management and a lot of examples from outside of healthcare, not only to inspire, but show them that it can be done. Because again, the tech data transformation, easy. Yeah. Behavior change is what's going to make it work or not work.
Yeah, and how are you integrating all that expertise that you have across Publicis? I mean, I know the Power One, you're all one, but how do you make sure that those conversations are happening across the holding group, that people that have maybe that automobile experience can come in and talk to those folks on the pharma side to make exactly what you're talking about happen?
It's interesting because I was here over a decade ago when Maurice Levy was the CEO and he's now the chairman, and he announced the Power of One. And I remember at first we were all inspired, but we're like, why are we doing this, right? All of us were in our silos, things seem to be working, but he was ahead of his time to understand that clients are gonna want the best of Publicis Group, and how do we create an operating model and an offering that isn't confusing, takes out the complexity and makes it really easy. Then when you think about it, a couple years later, I remember when we bought Epsilon and when we bought Sapient, a couple years apart, we were all like, we're an ad network. Like, what do we need with platform and engineers? Like, our team started to look different. Why do we need to own our own data? We recently acquired Influential, right? And now we have the biggest influence network globally. We acquired Lotame, which now gives us a global data perspective. So what's interesting at the group is the operating model, and Marcel is our people platform, connects us. And when we show up at clients, yes, we have brand marketers. Yes, we have account people. Yes, we have people that know the pharmaceutical industry. But I also have the team that built the biggest production studio in the world. and I was also built 5 global production hubs globally dedicated to health. So the complexion of our team and the skill set looks really different, right? Like when we've been out pitching to clients, they're like, you don't sound like a holding company. Like you don't sound like an ad network. And I'm like,
quite the compliment.
And I'm like, we're very
Yeah.
different. But I give a lot of credit to Artur and to Maurice that put big bets over a decade ago that set us up. Like we keep saying, we've transformed, right? We're always going to be a work in progress at Publicis Health and Publicis Group, but we've been on this transformation journey for over a decade. So I think when you look in the news, and I'm really proud to be back at all the big wins that we're having in and outside of healthcare, I think it's because we took those bets and now they're paying off. So it's just, it's a really exciting place to be right now.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground here today. Any parting thoughts for our audience about just anything you're thinking about here in Cannes, or maybe some ground that we didn't cover yet?
I mean, I think, definitely embrace technology, data, and AI. But as I said at the top of the call, our meeting here, it's all about humanity and people, right? And the first day when I sat at the CMO roundtable, all 3 CMOs, Gail Horwood from Novartis and 2 other CMOs from outside of category, also talked about joy, right? And joy almost being a value in the work, right?
Yeah.
And we are in advertising, and it should be a lot of fun. And in our category, it should be that joy with responsibility, right? Because we are saving people's lives and changing people's lives every day. But I think bringing that humanity aspect into the work while we're transforming through data and AI is something I'd love for everyone to do and always consider.
All right, awesome note to end on. He's Matt McNally, the global CEO of Publicis Health. I'm Jameson Fleming, the editor-in-chief at MM+M. Great to see you from Cannes.
Thanks for having me.